Prime Minister for a 6-minute opening address. Here, here. I put that there, sorry. It's like that. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you all of the judges at this tournament. Thank you for all of the debaters. Thank you, Waterloo. Thank you, Laurier. It's been a great time. Thank you, Adam Goldstein. Mr. Speaker, there is a baby bear walking in the woods and doing nothing wrong. This baby bear is a protected species. There is a poacher, and the poacher shoots the baby bear. The poacher walks up to the baby bear, and the poacher is chopping the baby bear into pieces so that he can sell it on the open market. While he is doing this, Mr. Speaker, you should be writing this down. While he's doing this, the mama bear and the papa bear come home, and they're not happy. The mama bear and the papa bear, without the doubt, are going to rip the poacher into shreds and eat him. Mr. Speaker, you are another person witnessing the situation. You have a gun, you can kill the mama bear and the papa bear, but you shouldn't. You should let them do their business. Mr. Speaker, this House would allow the bears to kill the poacher. Bears don't fuck around. Men never. I have two constructive arguments. The first is the rights of the bear. The second is the rights of the poacher, who has none, and talk about the rights of the individual, how they ought to choose. To start on the rights of the bear, on one level, it's very simple. The bear has a right to restitution. The bear has lost its baby, and the bear gets to eat. Bears like to eat. You can somehow compensate for the harm. How about morally, right? Let's look at this on two levels. The first moral level is if you assume that they're just an animal. Well, if it was a jaguar that ate the baby bear, there'd be no question, right? You'd let the mama bear and the papa bear tear the jaguar to shreds. So if you think the bear perceives the hunter just as any other animal, the poacher, which he is, then the bear should have the right to kill the poacher. But we're going to look at it from the bear's perspective as a rational actor. We think there are three reasons why they have a moral standing to kill the poacher. The first is a right to protect your offspring. On a very basic level, I think the mother-child and father-child bond must be understood in the context of protecting your children. I think you have a right to ensure the health and the safety of baby. I also think that on this offspring point, the bears have a genetic right? They have a genetic right to protect their DNA from propagating. I think it's what the bears ought to do. I have two more, but go ahead.
Jake, isn't it the bears' parents' fault that they didn't teach their child proper survival skills and stuff? They got shot in the first
So, what would you do? You would have them not punish the poacher? This isn't an argument. It's not very logical. The second reason why the bear has moral standing is deterrence. Deterrence means that you kill the poacher, you eat him, and you leave his bones next to the body of your baby, Mr. Speaker. When someone finds those bones, they will know that it is never okay to kill the innocent children of a bear. It ensures that no other baby bears need to die needlessly. Thirdly, I think the bears have a right to self-defense, because as far as they know, the poacher can still kill them. The poacher is a clear and present danger. The poacher has just killed their son, Mr. Speaker. Now, why is it okay for the bears to kill the poacher? Because they have no other recourse. They can't appeal to a court of law. They only have the law of nature. And I think the law of nature actually is an eye for an eye. I think it's the only thing available. Finally, I think we consider whether they have the right information, right? So whether they have other recourse as a condition for justice. Because as far as the bear knows, if they don't do anything, the poacher's just going to get away, Mr. Speaker. So when we consider whether like a victim acted in self-defense if they shoot someone, we ask, did they have any other option? The bear doesn't have any other option. The bear needs to kill the poacher. Okay, pause. The second point I want to talk about, Mr. Speaker, is the rights of the poacher. I don't think the poacher has a right to protection anymore. Very basically, the poacher has already placed himself outside of human law. They have violated the laws we have set up to protect animals, which are our common property. As a consequence, I think they've already rejected society's rules when they've harmed society. Two consequences then. First, they should have no expectation of society's protection, right? Because what poaching is hunting in secret. What poaching is sneaking around and trying to avoid other people. So as a consequence of trying to kill the bear secretly, I think like your expectations play into how you deserve to be treated. I don't think the poacher is fair under this category. For example, if a thief broke the law and was subsequently caught in an electric fence, I don't think you have a positive duty to save the thief if it might cause harm to yourself. John's going to talk about that later. Go ahead.
Wouldn't speciesism say we always have to put our own species first and protect them?
Not at all. Because in Darwinian speciesism, right, what you actually have to do is compete with other members of your own species. So check it out. The poacher was competing unfairly, right? The poacher wasn't playing by the same rules. The poacher will benefit economically from breaking the law if you let him get away with it. We think your duty as a species is not to protect other members of your species, it's to protect your own genes. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I don't think the poacher has an expectation of possible harm, right? The poacher has gone one-on-one with nature. The poacher has killed the bear. The poacher has said, all bets are good. The gloves are off. As a consequence, I think they accept death as a possibility. The example here is, I think they consent to harm, right? If you eat a puffer fish, you might die if it wasn't cooked properly, right? So what you're saying is, you consent to nature killing you. Also, Mr. Speaker, that this is legal, poaching is not. Poaching a bear is extreme stupidity. Poaching a bear is illegal. We should let natural selection act. Mr. Speaker, we're proud to propose. Thank you.
Okay. I would like to thank the Prime Minister for his remarks and now call upon the Leader of the Opposition for her 7-minute constructive address. Here, here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So what Diane and I would do is shoot both of the bears, and I have 6 constructive arguments to explain why to their material. Some are going to take a very short amount of time to explain. Mr. Speaker, my first argument is speciesism, because I think this is actually very relevant here. I think the poacher, as another human being, you have an obligation to look out for them beyond somebody who is another species. So I'm going to have to borrow from Sarah here in terms of we're on the same team, Mr. Speaker. We all have to work together in terms of human society in order to help each other here. So I think, Mr. Speaker, we've all signed this like a non-existent social contract. We've realized that we have obligations to each other, Mr. Speaker, and I think that they could step in to prevent this death of another human being. So, Mr. Speaker, I think most humans would prefer to save another person than an animal. I think just objectively, we feel more of a biological tendency towards people of our own species. We can empathize with them, Mr. Speaker. We understand them better. And thus we feel more linked to them and have more of a sort of obligation to protect them. I also think, Mr. Speaker, the veil of ignorance argument here. What if the situation was reversed and you were the poacher cutting up the baby bear and somebody else could protect you from being killed by the bears? I think you would want that other person to shoot the bears, Mr. Speaker, and protect you. So I think that's also important. My second argument, Mr. Speaker, is how this should be similar to Good Samaritan laws, or at least what we think Good Samaritan laws should be, Mr. Speaker. We think that if you can step in to prevent another person's death or harm, then you should do that, Mr. Speaker. We think there's a benefit to society when people look out for each other and when they can do very little, Mr. Speaker, to stop each other from getting hurt. So it'd be very easy to pull the trigger and kill those other bears, Mr. Speaker. I think this is very, a small amount of burden to impose on this person to protect another life. Go ahead.
You have no duty to protect people from the consequences of their illegal acts. If a jaywalker walks in front of a car, you don't have to jump in front of the car's way or pull him out of the way of the car.
But it's not about whether you have a legal obligation necessarily. It's about whether you have we were probably discussing this in terms of moral terms, whether you have a moral obligation. And I think you do have a moral obligation, Mr. Speaker, because this person, maybe they were a little misguided, engaged in illegal poaching, Mr. Speaker. I think we can all recognize the importance of forgiveness and moving past this. So anyway, we think they have an obligation to protect their own species, Mr. Speaker, and step in. My third argument is about psychological harms if you don't kill the other bear. So this has 2 parts, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I think just knowing that you could have done something to save another person's life, but you didn't choose to do that, that's going to weigh incredibly heavily on your conscience, Mr. Speaker. Forever you're going to think about that split-second decision when you could have made a different decision to save someone else, but you didn't, Mr. Speaker. I think those devastating psychological harms are reason enough for you to kill the bears. But I think the more interesting part of psychological harms, Mr. Speaker, is you're going to have to watch the massacre that happens when these two bears tear to shreds that other human being, Mr. Speaker. That very gory spectacle, I think, is going to be imprinted on your mind forever, and I don't think you're going to want to deal with that. No, thank you, Jake. So just in terms of protecting your own psychological well-being, I think this makes sense. Now, Mr. Speaker, I get into my more interesting arguments. So, self-defense, Mr. Speaker. What's going to happen if you don't kill the bears? They're going to have the taste of blood, Mr. Speaker. They're going to get very agitated, very excited, and then they see you, Mr. Speaker. They've just had a delicious meal and could have a second one. I think in order to protect yourself, you should preemptively kill them to save yourself. Go ahead, John.
A, don't you think they're already agitated? Their kid just died? And B, don't you think one poacher is enough? I mean, I get full easily.
These are adult bears. Certainly eat more than one human. I don't think that's an issue here, Mr. Speaker. And I think the taste of blood has much more of an imperative for them to continue to seek out additional sources of food. Then, Mr. Speaker, another argument. Do we even like or care about bears? I don't know. So, Mr. Speaker, there's a lot of problems with bears. They kill way cuter animals like chipmunks, Mr. Speaker. They scratch the shit out of endangered forests, and that's really problematic. Mr. Speaker, they're a menace. When we're camping, they raid through our campsites and steal our garbage. I don't even think we like bears. More of a reason why we should kill them. Mr. Speaker, thanks, Jake. My last argument about the economic benefit. So I don't think this is a zero-sum game here. I think this person now has a chance to also engage in some illicit, illegal poaching and immensely benefit, Mr. Speaker. Not only can you split the initial baby bear, but now you could have 3 bears each to another reason why you should kill them, Mr. Speaker. What did we hear from Jake? The rights of the bear that bears like to eat. Mr. Speaker, we give them garbage all the time. We don't have to give them a person. In terms of revenge, Diana's going to talk a lot about this in her constructive argument, Mr. Speaker. But I think we have to recognize that the parents are a little bit at fault for what happened to their offspring. So, first of all, where were the parents when this baby was just shot by the poacher, Mr. Speaker? And, they were obviously far enough away that the poacher was able to, start hacking to bits their baby before they arrived on the scene. So, first of all, negligence, Mr. Speaker. Also, they clearly didn't teach their child proper survival skills in order to camouflage himself and avoid poachers. So the parents are not understand, Mr. Speaker. I don't think they have any right to revenge because it's through their own fault that their baby died. So I don't buy the eye for the eye logic. Also, Mr. Speaker, I think humans have moved beyond that sort of very simplistic bloodlust. I think we should also impose a more complicated legal system where we don't have an eye for an eye on these bears. I think that would be a much more preferable system, Mr. Speaker. In terms of we're going to leave the bones as a marker for other animals, Mr. Speaker, these bones are going to be picked clean. You'll have no idea what species these bones belong to. It won't have any effect or any deterrence, as Jake kind of suggested it would. In terms of, Mr. Speaker, the poacher is a danger to the bears, and so it's okay to kill them. It's 2 bears against 1 poacher, Mr. Speaker. They're angry. I don't think this is an unfair fight. I think, Mr. Speaker, that the poacher is at a disadvantage, and so we have another reason to assist them to combat this sort of 2 against 1 angry bears going after them, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I think we've heard a very interesting case from the government. Diana and I weren't sure really what we were going to say at first, but I think there's a number of reasons, Mr. Speaker, why shooting the bears is a preferable option to being a bystander. So we talked just about speciesism, biological link, Mr. Speaker, how that's very important, how we don't need to put the bears' rights above our own, Mr. Speaker. In terms of similar, the psychological harms to you as an individual, I think these are very long-lasting. If you know that you could have done something very easy to save another person's life and you didn't, Mr. Speaker, you're always going to think about that moment. Psychological harms just watching this vicious act occur before you, also a problem. Self-defense, Mr. Speaker, we need to protect ourselves. The taste of blood is a powerful motivator. And then we don't even like bears. And all of Jake's analysis, I think, we've dealt with. And for all those reasons, we beg to oppose.
I'd like to thank the Leader of the Opposition for remarks, and now call upon the Minister to kind of further cite government's case in a 7-minute address.
And plug. Nice message. All right, not only did Jake steal my Adam Goldstein joke, he also left me the boring constructive material, so thanks, Jake. So I'm going to bring up one new constructive point. It's called permissibility on the part of the hunter, and I think this is really important. And then I'm going to get into detailed refutation of the insane number of constructive arguments brought up on this side. Okay, so first, I'd like to talk about how inaction is sometimes acceptable. In society, they talk about Good Samaritan laws. There are cases, a lot of cases where you don't have a duty to call 911. Even under social contract, you don't necessarily have that duty. That's sort of just a premise to this point. So, do we have a moral duty to other humans? This is sort of also in direct refutation to our idea of speciesism, right? So we sort of have this principle between us of do no harm. But what Jake and I would like to argue to you, and I know I said this would be boring, right, is that it's a societal construct. We're constrained by the social contract that we protect one another because we have the same values and we feel that that is better for our mutual protection. But we would like to argue that a criminal has abdicated this right. No, thank you. No, the criminal has abdicated this right. So consider what Jake told you about Darwinism and the state of nature and all that sort of stuff, right? Another text is that in nature species compete, right? In nature, species compete, they fight each other, etc. They don't have this sort of social contract. And we feel that in this situation, the poacher has gone back to that by violating the contract that we set up. So consider what I told you about, yes, I will take you.
But we don't have a contract with the bears, so no contract was violated. That doesn't matter.
Right, but we're talking about on the part of the hunter, whether it's permissible, whether we have to defend the poacher, right? So that is entirely so the poacher, right? What is the poacher doing? Consider that the poacher is breaking laws for his own profit. He is breaking the contract for economic profit. So it's now permissible because now there's no contract. We're back to the natural state between you and him. You can let him suffer, and we would argue you should let him suffer. Screw him. Examine it as back to Darwin. So is this the best way to serve justice? We think you should let the bears do their thing. Consider the notional situation of a pirate on a sinking boat. Bear with me. A pirate on a sinking boat. Now you could save the pirate, but you have to incur... you have to incur a cost to do so. Keep getting rid of my timer. I don't know how much time I have. You'd have to incur a cost in order to save the pirate, right? Well, that's more intuitive because you know pirates are really bad. We like to argue that poachers are sort of like that as well. You have to incur this cost. That's a bad thing. So don't save the pirate, don't save the poacher. Why don't we go to Well, you have to consider, the poacher is a probable harm to society. But in order to actively punish him, that is, take him to court, etc., you have to apply for it's a higher standard for active punishment. It's much different for passive punishment, so we feel that in this case, passive punishment is justified. So, let's talk, how much time do I have? 4 minutes. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, but does the poacher's actions warrant being massacred and mauled to death by bears?
Yes! Where were you for the last 10 seconds? So I'd like to talk to you about cost. Cost. So there's of course there's a chance for self-harm if you stop the bears, right? So then it's ambiguous as to whether he's worse than you because then you have also broken our law by shooting a bear. So they're advocating breaking the law. We've already specified these bears are endangered, right? So because then that's what they're advocating. They're saying you should break the law too. They're saying you should be a poacher, which is essentially what you are if you're going to shoot these endangered bears. And it's entirely morally ambiguous. Is he punishable, etc. So pirate, etc. I don't even want to do that again. That was Jake's analogy. Okay, so they talked about speciesism. They talked about how we have an obligation to work with him, that we're on the same team. He broke our laws. We are not on the same team. That's the idea. That's what our laws are for. That's what our team is. He broke the social contract. Screw him. Okay, so she said, well, if we were in this position, we wouldn't want you to not shoot the bears. And well, of course we wouldn't want to get massacred, but we screwed up by breaking the laws in the first place. We don't care what the poacher, what you would want if you were in the poacher's position. It doesn't matter to us. Talked about how we have a moral obligation for forgiveness and how the poacher was misguided. How is he misguided if he's rationally taking place in a market activity and very carefully cutting up a bear to sell it to people? It's not like, oh no, I screwed up and shot a bear accidentally. It's like he's coldly cutting it up. I don't think that's misguided at all. I don't know how you can construe it that way. She talked about self-defense and the taste of blood. I think I covered this in a POI. It's already incredibly agitated, right? And if you try and shoot him, you're not going to make it less agitated. That is 6 text messages in 1 speech. Okay, so then she talked about, do we even like bears? I don't even think she's serious on this point, because consider this. We like baby bears. They're cute. She talks about how they're killing all sorts of cute animals. Baby bears are like the cutest thing in the world. Teddy bears, Paddington bear, Bear bears. Are these not cute? Do you not see this on the walls of children? These are cute animals. That point falls. No thanks. Okay. So, talked about how you get economic benefit, right? You get economic benefit from joining him and selling the meat. Now, I admit I was a little taken in by the creativity of this argument. Under all of our other arguments, that would then make you liable to be shot by someone walking through the woods. We don't think it's a good idea. Then we talked about how it's the bears involved and the baby bears should be able to avoid poachers. It's like, yeah, why haven't bears invented bulletproof vests? Like, what a shame. That baby bear should totally be able to avoid that poacher. That's totally crazy. The mother bear can't always take the baby bear hunting with it. Sometimes the poacher has a gun. Obviously, that's an imbalance. That was unfair. And that leads us to what they were saying about how it's not a fair fight. The poacher's at a disadvantage. You should join in. Look, does it have to be a fair fight? He killed a freaking baby bear when his parents aren't around. When did he have the right to a fair fight, right? So, he's talked about how an eye for an eye is bad, our laws should, etc. We're not saying that our laws are an eye for an eye, we're saying the bears' laws are an eye for an eye, right? The bears think it's justified, and we are arguing their right to kill this poacher. So basically, in summation, what we're saying is, this is another one, is let the poacher die. The poacher deserves to die. I proudly propose.
I'd like to thank the Minister of the Crown remarks and call upon a member of the opposition to further set off this case.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Alright, so first I want to talk about the bear, right? This is what we have to say to the bear outside, actually the bear's parents on side oppositions, right? Mama and Papa Bear. Karma's a bitch, yo, but we don't care. Karma's a bitch. You practiced negligence. You didn't teach your cubs to watch out for the hunter with the gun. You let them roam around. Well, what were you doing? Stuffing your face on the blueberries while your little baby bear was looking to find his own patch of blueberries? That's ridiculous, right? These parents should have been looking out for their little bear, but they didn't, Mr. Speaker. And you know what we say? We say, poo-poo, too bad for you. The poacher got your kid. That's karma. In fact, that's Darwinism. Those parents aren't fit to be parents because they neglect their children. So we don't want to pass those genes on to more future negligent parental bears. Okay? So now I want to talk about this dynamic we have going between you, the individual, yeah.
What does the poacher have coming to him in the karmic sense?
This is what he has. He's a bit of a dick, but he's a human, and because of speciesism, like Christine talked about it, we gotta keep with the humans, and we gotta have his back. Right? So that actually leads me to what I wanted to talk about, which is this dynamic between you as this other, third-party individual and the hunter, right? I want to say, a couple things. So we heard from the second speaker on the government about the hunter's permissibility and how inaction is sometimes acceptable in society, right? But what we're saying, Mr. Speaker, is that even if that's the case, we think this person should take action, right? To protect the poacher. We want them to save the poacher's life. We think that's a good thing. Why? Well, first, because you'd expect the same thing in return, right? Like if a bear's about to maul me, I hope that every single one of you in this room would get in there and save my ass. Otherwise, you're not impressing me very much, right? Alright? The second thing is inaction, right? Who cares about the inaction? As Christine already pointed out, if you don't save the poacher, the bears are coming for you next, right? They said they can't handle that, but they haven't specified, how big the poacher is. If the poacher's only my size, right, he's got enough room to eat me again. This is the problem. Plus, it's not just one bear, it's two freaking bears. Plus, what if they bring their friends over? They're about how the poacher broke the law, right? So he deserves death. But on a more sort of serious note as far as that's concerned, Mr. Speaker, we'd say that, you know what, death doesn't necessarily warrant, death, the magnitude of that punishment doesn't really warrant what the poacher did, right? So the poacher was a little misguided. But a lot of times, people do a lot of things in society that we don't kill them for, right? Like here in Canada, we don't have the death penalty. We don't think we should just let the poacher die because he was, you know, being a little illegal and sketchy. We don't stand for that, right? But moreover, Mr. Speaker, not only do we think that the poacher doesn't deserve to die, but we think that you stand to benefit, right? Like, yeah, Christine pointed out that you can actually now poach all these bears and gain everything that you were going to gain from it. But even, you could take another avenue, right? So listen to this scenario, right? You say to the poacher quickly, while Mama and Papa are looking at each other, coming up with a game plan, right? Like they're forming a circle, right? You say to the poacher, you're like, listen, pal, you're in trouble because you've been poaching illegally, and that's not very kosher. But I'll make you a deal. I get all the revenue from this, and you give me 30% of your monthly salary for the rest of your life, and I'll save your life. Hey! Right? There's another source of income. This is not only self-defense now, but you're just being, like, entrepreneurial. Yes.
Madam, that's ridiculous. Slavery is just wrong.
Slavery, Mr. Speaker, was innocent people who hadn't done anything wrong were taken and given nothing in return. No, no, no. Hello, we're gonna save the poacher's life. I think that's a pretty good deal. And they can, you know, you can come out with an acceptable arrangement between the two of you, but I don't think that negates the fact that you stand to benefit something here, and we're totally okay with that on-side opposition. So then finally, the next thing that we heard from side government was that, like, come on guys, bears are cute. It's Paddington bears. I don't know who you are in this scenario. I don't know what you were smoking before you stumbled upon these guys in the woods, but those bears don't actually look like Paddington bears. I've never seen Paddington bear, okay, walking around out there. No, have you ever seen one of these things? First off, they stink, right? Like they have bad breath, bad hygiene. MPG just wouldn't be able to put up with it. Okay? They have these huge, nasty, freaking ass teeth that are about to rip some dude up in front of you, which is going to be like psychologically and emotionally traumatic, as Christine already talked about. But then he's going to go for you, and that's not going to be a good time, right? He's got these huge claws, but moreover, like, do we even really like bears that much? The government thinks that we do, but I've got a couple scenarios for you about things that we don't like about bears, right? I want to talk about the fact that they come rummaging through people's dumps, right? They go through your food, they take your crap, okay, so you go for a hike, right? And you're walking down the path, and you step in, like, mud. That's not mud. That was a big grizzly bear dump that you just stepped in. Why do we need that, right? Put up with that crap. No pun intended, Mr. Speaker. Yes?
Do none of your cute animals take crap?
Cute animals aren't about to come eat me, and I don't stand to benefit from killing the cute animal, arranging a deal with the poacher, you know, chopping up the cute animal. Like, that's ridiculous, right? Like, we think in this scenario, we still stand to benefit, but moreover, like chipmunks, the cute example that we've heard so far in this round, Mr. Speaker, a chipmunk poopy is like this, right? Like, if I'm a hiker, I think I'm hardcore enough to handle a poopy this big. I'm talking about grizzly poopies. Plus, you know what? If you let the grizzly eat that poacher, right? That's a lot of food that's not digestible. I don't want to hike through it. Mr. Speaker, we've talked about speciesism. We've talked about your ability to benefit. We've talked about the rights and the need for sympathy for this misguided illegal poacher. All right? We've talked about how karma's a bitch and the hop-on mama bear should have known better. All right? We're very, very proud to oppose. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the member of the opposition for remarks and call upon the leader of the opposition for 3 minutes rebuttal address. 4. 3 per person.
I'll take it.
She gets
It's going to be very difficult to summarize this round. So I'm going to do it through 2 frames. First, just look at the bear and a lot of like sub-arguments under there, and then look at humans. So I think it's the easiest way we can try to do it this way. So Mr. Speaker, under bear heading. So let's talk about revenge, Mr. Speaker. I think you lose that ability to enact revenge when it was your fault that your child died, Mr. Speaker. You were clearly negligent. Both parents left this kid far away away from them, Mr. Speaker, and didn't teach it proper survival skills like how to deke out hunters, Mr. Speaker, and disguise yourself in the bushes so that the hunter can't see you. I don't think you get that power of revenge when it was your fault and your inaction that led to your child's death, Mr. Speaker. Negligence is a very powerful argument for our side. In terms of eye for an eye, and how this is how the animal kingdom normally works. It doesn't mean it's right, Mr. Speaker. We have a chance to reverse this horrible system of justice, Mr. Speaker, by not allowing them to continue this bloodlust. Mr. Speaker, I also think we don't necessarily care if we keep 3 more bears alive. I think we've proved to you pretty conclusively they can be a menace, Mr. Speaker, and it can be in our interest to get rid of them. But a new argument, well, not a new argument, Mr. Speaker. Interesting your refutation. About how this is like really mean to the bears who killed their child. I would posit to you, we can actually start to reverse some of that harm we've caused by putting the bears out of their misery and not making them live without their baby, Mr. Speaker. Actually be really kind and try to repair some of the damage that this poacher has enacted. So now under humans, Mr. Speaker. Okay, speciesism. I think, Mr. Speaker, we have a clear obligation to people over humans. So just genetically. That's so weird now, Mr. Speaker. People over animals. Okay. So we have a genetic link, an emotional link, an ability to engage with people on a level that we don't have with animals, Mr. Speaker. I think we should empathize with humans on a degree we can't with animals, Mr. Speaker. I also think we constantly destroy animal habitats. We eat animals all the time because it benefits us, Mr. Speaker. So I think there's a clear idea there that people's needs, people's benefits, and people's interests supersede these animal rights. Mr. Speaker, legally, sometimes it's okay to not act in these cases. We think that morally, Mr. Speaker, you should act to save that other person, particularly because if the situation was reversed, you would want someone to protect you. This idea that they've broken the contract through crime. Mr. Speaker, we don't just do whatever we want to criminals. We put them up in luxurious accommodations in the Kingston pen, Mr. Speaker. We don't kill them, so I don't believe in this either. I also think this could be a chance for forgiveness and redemption, Mr. Speaker. You're saving this poacher's life. I think they're going to have to think twice about whether they go back to poaching, Mr. Speaker. This could be a chance for redemption. I think that's a powerful motivator for humans as well. Just in terms of, even without the moral stuff, the benefits to you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, preserving your psychological well-being, not watching a massacre, not always feeling guilty for the rest of your life that you didn't step in. Self-defense, bloodlust, Mr. Speaker, powerful, avoid it. Mr. Speaker, also someone who's in debt to you, I think that could be a really big benefit, and you can get in on the very lucrative poaching industry, Mr. Speaker. So for all of those reasons, we beg to amend.
I'd like to thank the Leader of the Opposition very much, and I call upon the Prime Minister for his 4-minute rebuttal address. Here.
Mr. Speaker, those of us who are about to die, we salute you. That was a gladiator reference. It just seemed a bit appropriate considering the round involves bears killing humans. That wasn't that funny. But it's funny when I point it out. Okay, so I have 4 points of refutation first, and then I want to sum up this debate under 2 questions. So the first point I want to respond to is this harm psychologically Christine says of watching. That's easy, just don't watch, turn around, walk away. The second thing is that these bears give away their right to revenge. I think this is unreasonable. I don't think bears can block bullets. I don't think bears have any way to fight against poachers. Furthermore, I think the bears have had an expectation set up over the years because of endangered species laws that they don't need to protect themselves from poachers, right? They aren't the ones being negligent, it's the person who violated the law that was negligent. Therefore, QED, they can kill the poacher. This next thing, right, which is this guy is a human, right? My response is, so what? He's killing bears. He's making money that he can use to buy things that you might have wanted to buy yourself. Illegally. He's competing with you. He might get a girl that you wanted to get yourself. The point is, species don't protect each other. Species compete with each other. The way that species protect each other is by weeding out the weak and the stupid, i.e. the poacher, right? Get the DNA from the gene pool. I don't think you have a duty to do this. Also, karma, right? Karma is naturalistic. Karma says, let the laws of nature do their thing. The laws of nature are clearly the bears, not you and your gun. The next thing is this reciprocity, right? What if you wanted to get saved? What about the veil of ignorance? Mr. Speaker, first of all, veil of ignorance justifies, the welfare state, not shooting bears. But secondly, if you want to be saved, right? You have a very easy way to do it. Don't kill bears. Fourthly, the bears are coming for you. Response number 1, run away. Response number 2, drive away. Response number 3, climb a tree. They're not grizzly bears, okay? They're... Squirrel. They're fantasy bears. Alright. 2 questions. Who is the moral actor, the poacher or the bear? This argument is characteristics of each. Poacher, mean, stupid, killed a bear and broke the law, deserves to die. The bear, awesome. Natural punishment. Negligent if he can't stop a bullet. No way. Eye for an eye, they say? It's not an eye for an eye. We modeled the bear as a rational actor. The bear has 3 great reasons to kill the poacher. To protect its offspring. Now this thing about like, oh, don't make more babies. Put the bears out of their misery. Let the bears make more babies, because they deserve them. Let the poacher die. Let the bears live. Second question, what duty do we have? Good Samaritan laws. Yeah, you know what? Good Samaritan laws are for saving innocent people. Poacher, not innocent. Only speaking in short sentences at I also don't think you need to empathize with someone who broke the rules, because the poacher will compete with you, because the poacher can steal your girlfriend. And so he's a member of the same species. It doesn't matter. Finally, to end this round, right? I just think Christine didn't take it seriously. At the end of the MO speech, we have like analysis about the size of bear poop. And we have this really immoral counter case involving slavery. Now, if you had to make a choice between enslaving someone and letting a bear fulfill its mandate, we say, let the bear kill the poacher. We are proud to propose.
I'd like to thank all of you for appearing in the round. Paul's going to get to a close, and now judges, let's get out of here. The rest of you, hang out.